Welcome to Happily Ever After is just the beginning. Keeping your relationship not just together, but happy, and we mean truly happy, is part art and part science. You've come to the right place. Here's your host, Leslie Dories.
I think the thing that saddens me the most about my work as a marriage coach is the number of people who are settling for so much less than they deserve in their marriages. Sometimes supposedly unacceptable behavior has been going on for years. Now, I'm not talking about abuse, addiction, or serial affairs, though that happens too. What I'm really talking about is the lack of affection, sex, real conversation, respect, and quite frankly, just basic kindness. And it isn't just for a few weeks or months, but often from the very, very beginning. And when I go a little deeper, I usually find that while some effort has been made to address the challenges, they often lack clarity, consistency, and consequences. The reason? Fear. The result? Either rage or desperation, neither of which are particularly attractive. So what's the answer? Well, Stuart Rotolo, relationship coach and the author of Fixing You is Killing Me, A Conscious Roadmap to Knowing when to save and when to leave your relationship, is here to talk about that. So, Stuart, thanks so much for coming back on the show to talk about these ever-present relationship challenges.
Yes, thanks, Leslie. Thanks for having me.
So, you wrote a piece a bit ago for the Good Men Project titled, She Wants a Truthful Man. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm hearing all the men out there laughing about that, going, yeah, right. But in this article, you talk about accepting the status quo. So why does this seem to happen so often, that people just kind of accept things as they are?
Well, I think, first off, people get into a new normal, and there's a certainty to that normal. And whether it's a functionality like, hey, we're a good team, we get stuff done, we raise the kids, things work okay, the house isn't on fire, we're both really tired from everything else that we do, and it just kind of works, you know. As long as the house is not on fire too often, we're doing okay. And then they are not having those things that you mentioned, lack affection, sex, real conversation, respect, and basic kindness. I think often we talk about relationship in this country explicitly as if it's an isolated thing in a petri dish. But when we look, you know, while most of my conversations are about the relational conditions, about how to have hard conversations, I've blogged in the past about the unlived life of the couple, which is the couple that no longer dreams together, the couple that really doesn't talk much about the future except for the next vacation. And often that vacation is to the relatives, the in-laws, or we've been to Aruba 10 times. Sure, it's fine. We'll go back there, or whatever it is. So that lack of spark in the relationship, and while we assume that that's part of the landscape post-honeymoon, which we would say after the first 6 to 12 months together, really enough, there's also a laziness, as long as the house is not on fire, you know? It's like affection, sex, real conversation, respect, basic kind of, yeah, it's all good, but as long as the house is not on fire.
Yeah, I talk about it in a lot of cases that just because, you know, that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and if there's nothing squeaking in the marriage, then it's kind of stuck out on the back burner, and you know, and as long as it doesn't boil over, everything's fine. And especially in this country where we have a huge focus on elevating the children above the marriage itself, and also sometimes just, you know, elevating work above the relationship itself.
Yes, and I didn't really get to it before, but when I was talking about societal economic conditions in this country, you know, without a safety net, without knowing you're going to have health insurance if you lose your job, without knowing that you don't have to make, I don't know, anywhere from $60,000 to $250,000 per kid to send them to college. It's a lot of stress on a couple. Like I've spent a lot of time in Spain. I've talked to you about that before. A lot more emphasis on going out, drinking with other couples, enjoying the night out, taking a stroll down the village or city via plaza. So we, you know, I say this too. America was built on transactional consciousness. It wasn't built on what I call relational consciousness. And now I don't want to get into a whole history lesson, but can you understand that just on just that headline level?
Absolutely.
People came here for economics to make money, not to have strong families or relationships. Granted, we like to put that in the front headline as if that's one of the greatest values of our country, but it's BS. It's complete BS. It's more like we'd rather talk about it than actually have policies that support that. So anyway, back to the relationship. I mean, you know, did you want to chime in on what I was speaking to? But because I just wanted to bring it full circle back to relationships. Well,
yeah, because it's truly what it is. I mean, you know, I think as a society we give lip service to a lot of things, but I also think that in giving lip service to stuff, we don't really break down that it doesn't have to be this way, that there are choices. And right now, being in this wonderful time frame that we're in, you know, it gives people a lot of opportunity to go, because right now we're kind of off the hamster wheel, being forced off the hamster wheel. And like, what do we want to bring back into our lives? You know, I mean, yes, this is not a great situation for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, economically being one of them. But it also can, hopefully, not just within our own four walls, but within our society, go, okay, maybe we want to rethink this because we keep saying these things are important to us, but then there's actually nothing to support that, or not enough to support that. It's like even you know, people think that this is what marriage looks like, or that this is what a committed relationship looks like. It has to go into the doldrums. We have to become roommates. We have to do all these. We have to fight. I mean, all these things that, you know, we're supposed to be doing, which nobody ever bothers to go, do we really? Is there another way?
Yeah. And I think, just to bring it full circle back to a couple so that I don't have to worry about a history lesson or being a sociologist, I just mentioned that briefly just so people know that they don't need to personalize everything relative to the fact that there's a whole economic system that is rubbing up against having a strong relationship as well, which means even more focus and more attention and more value. You know, it's as if the microscope needs to zoom in precisely because of these economic societal conditions. It, in my opinion, requires that we really look at what do we value at the end of the day. I mean, you know, the classic, nobody died in their later years wishing they spent more time in the office. Well,
exactly.
You may know the 75-year-old Harvard study that tracked, I don't know how many men it was, but it was like 40 or so. And, you know, during a time where, you know, they weren't tracking women as much as men at the time. But I think they tracked them for 60, 70 years. And all these guys at the end, it was like consensus. And it's more powerful in a way that comes from guys who often can be more tactical, transactional than relational. In America, all of them said the most important thing in their lives were their relationships.
Exactly.
And their primary relationship. So, and I don't know if they explicitly asked, well, did you honor that? Did you pay attention to that? Did you put time and energy there during your life? I believe they may have asked that. And I can't imagine anything else than, actually I didn't, and I wish I knew that earlier. And so that's the one thing that I could say to people right now to penetrate through to them, that whether you're married or you've been in a long-term relationship, I don't know what kind of wake-up call, or if you even need one, to know how important it is that you invest some time and energy. And I want to be clear, Leslie, I recommend to guys explicitly, I work primarily with men as a men's relationship coach, explicitly because of what you mentioned. There's not a lot of tools out there for guys, and the way that I work compared to therapy is I get guys results and payoffs really quick. Doesn't mean the whole ship is fixed within a few weeks, but within 3 to 4 weeks, they're seeing payoffs of this work, and we have a clear roadmap of implementation and progress, and that further motivates them. They get a taste of what they want, and then they're motivated, because most guys drop out of therapy because it's not clear.
Oh, I know. Yeah, most guys do not like therapy.
They don't get a payoff, and guys are wired, and I make the analogy of a guy at work. He knows what he's working hard for. He knows that there's a concrete time frame in which he can expect to get results. Oh, he's got this review coming up in 4 months. He's going to see if he's going to get the promotion. He's going to see, there's more as added prestige to go with that. There's the knowledge of stepping into what he wants to do. So if I can get a guy payoffs in his relationship in a really quick way that are substantial, that are not just superficial, and that might just be baby steps, like, hey, here's a few small wins, but this is what you have to look forward to if you keep this up, then he's much more motivated. His mojo's up. He's going to keep kicking butt and going after what he wants in his relationship. So I draw this full circle back to a guy being motivated to put time and energy into his relationship instead of just like, relationship, that's too complicated, it's a pain in the ass. And I bring this full circle back to one of the biggest things I have dudes do is a weekly 30-minute check-in with their partner. It's just a simple reflexive listening. He talks 5 minutes, she talks, she repeats 5 minutes, 5 and 5, switch. But nobody's interrupting anyone, and they are now suddenly connecting and going exactly to where most couples don't, which is what I call the invisible life, which is the result of the couples that don't connect at this level is they have an invisible life as a couple. And, just checking in for 20, 30 minutes. Might be Wednesday at 6 p.m. before dinner. After the kids are asleep at 8:30. Oh, I'm exhausted, but I know this is so important so that I don't feel like I'm living with a ghost.
Right.
I am connected to this person. And you can do that in 20 to 30 minutes a week. And you know what? It energizes your weekend. It energizes your weekend. And this is not fluffy New Age BS. This is hard work. It takes grit to sit in the space with your partner who's saying, I just feel like, we don't have much time. I feel like we're not available to one another. And he's just repeating what he's saying. And he's holding his own reaction in that moment. If his partner's like, what are you talking about? We spend time together. This is bullshit. None of that. This is not what this space is about. It's just, dude, that's her feelings. You don't have to take that on. That's your power as a guy.
So was that what you meant in this article about because you titled this article, She Wants a Truthful Man, and in order, and there has to be time, he has to be able to, or there has to be time for both of them to be truthful with each other.
You're right. There does need to be a dedicated space where they know that they can speak the truth of what's going on for them in their relationship and in their lives, and there's not going to be any collateral damage. It's just going to be somebody reflecting back, oh, yeah, I heard you say this. I heard you say that. I heard you say this. And I'm going to tell you, I put out that blog with that title, and a few dudes have had challenges with that. And I probably would have changed the title in hindsight because I do serve men and I need to connect with what resonates for them. And a title that would have been more resonant with a guy is, something as simple as speaking your truth with her will make you happier or something like that.
Right. And again, because one of the things that I get from you know, a lot of the men that I work with is that similar thing about, yeah, right, she just wants, it's the whole just say yes, dear. She doesn't really want to
She wants me to do shit for her.
Right. Right. I mean, it's
no,
you know.
I had a client the other day. He's like, I do 10 things. She asked me to do 10 things. I do 9. And I just get beat up for not doing the 10th.
Right, for not doing the 10th. Right. Which
believe me,
so they're going, yeah, now I'm supposed to be truthful about this, and I need to take a little break right here, but we're going to get back to that, because this is Happily Ever After is just the beginning on webtalkradio.net. I'm Leslie Dories, and I'm speaking with relationship coach and author Stuart Mottola about how to stop accepting the unacceptable status quo in your relationship. And this is all too common, but it results in the black and white thinking that it's either continue in an unsatisfying relationship or leave it. But there's actually a third option. Make it better. And if you want some help with that, I invite you to contact me today and schedule a free, no obligation, Create Your Happily Ever After discovery session. You can reach me at area code 919-924-0463. Again, that's 919-924-0463. Or you can send me an email at Leslie, Lesli, at foundationscoachingnc.com. That's FOUNDATIONS, coaching, N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie.com. And now I want to get back to talking about not settling for less in a relationship, how to be honest about your thoughts and feelings with each other. And in the article, Stuart, you did a Tony Robbins quote, passion in a relationship is commensurate with the amount of uncertainty you can tolerate. And I love that, and I went, ooh. So what makes dealing with uncertainty so terrifying that it actually kills relationships?
Well, I'll reference back to what I said initially. You know, the normal is very comfortable. I know what to expect. I know the dynamic that we have, and the house is not on fire, so it works. It's okay. It's good enough. You know, we don't get those things that you mentioned again: infection, sex, conversation. The killer is the basic kindness. If people are not getting the basic kindness, they're living in a marital death zone. It's, you know, it might be a slow death, and that's you know,
I call
fighting,
it the death. I call it the death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, and that's where. But yeah, you know, there's a sense, I've even heard male clients say, I'd rather the certainty of our apathy and hatred than the uncertainty of the unknown, of what could possibly be, the uncertainty of knowing that if we pull the lid off, we're probably done because we've been building it up for so long. You know, but you talked quickly about the difference of the two options, staying or leaving. And I mean, our work is about, as relationship coaches, and you're a marriage coach, I believe. So our work is about exploring that gray zone. Like, hey, you know, you can pull the lid off and not detonate the bomb. You know, you can start to look at things. We can start to have invisible truths spoken in a way that you're respecting what's actually alive. And I love this Richard Rohr quote. He was a Franciscan friar, and he said, "The truth will set you free, but first it tends to make you miserable." And it's that fear of the misery that that's the uncertainty. I know the misery I have, but damn if I'm going to open myself to the misery that I don't know about. I know I can deal with what this is. And having a hard conversation in a respectful way, and typically when a relationship or marriage is super challenged, there needs to be a third party there. And that's really scary, but getting through that getting through that level of uncertainty in a good way, building resilience to uncertainty as a couple and knowing you can get through it, that's, in my perception, the greatest team building, strength, asset, spark of sex, spark of affection, spark of respect and basic kindness is getting through hard stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's that uncertainty that's so terrifying.
Mm-hmm. And so you talked about
people would rather shy away from.
A little bit about the confirmation bias. So is that what you mean? Is it's like
exactly.
I know that this idea that I know it's not going to make a difference, and so it doesn't make a difference because, or I know this is going to go badly, so then it does. Is that kind of what you meant by that in the article?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to open up, have a hard conversation, but I'm like holding all the energy of this is going to be screwed. She's going to react a certain way. And not to say that mindset alone causes that reality to then transpire after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But that mindset does not allow a space or even an imagination for fluid communication. And yes, for sure, an individual has to learn some skills. Like first, how not to lose your shit when hard stuff is said. That's a really big skill. So a lot of times I've seen other coaches work, okay, 1 to 10. 1's you're totally calm and collective. 10, you're losing it. If you're above a 5, you don't say a word. You actually, I actually talk about two-word phrases that are just lifesavers for couples. One is time out. So there, I'm above a 5. Pause, time out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing it, honey. I got to go step outside, get back to a 1 or a 2, calm myself down, and then I can continue this conversation. I have no idea what the hell's happened to me. I am so hot, jacked up, and I know I'm just going to release a shitstorm on you. So I better get the hell out of here for 10 minutes. And I don't want to do that, so let me go, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there it is, 2 words, time out. And the other 2 words are check-in, and that's a process that I spoke to before about 5 minutes listening, 5 minutes reflecting. That check-in as a way of, okay, we're not going to just, report to one another. Oh, I did this today. We're going to actually drop a layer deeper. This is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. This is where I'm feeling vulnerable. This is where I feel like I'm kicking butt or whatever's alive for the person. And that's the check-in. So, again, two quick tools, 2 phrases, time out, check-in. They don't go together all the time. But sometimes the time out's like, hey, we're fighting here. Let's get back to actually communicating. So let's go to check-in. And I actually just did this with my partner recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a full bulletproof, but it definitely settles the nervous system and allows more fluid communication to happen.
Well, and that's what I think is the key. And I think when I read that piece, that's what I meant. Oh, that's what I took away from speaking your truth. And by the way, and I want to talk about speaking your truth is not capital T absolute truth. It's how you feel. It's what you're experiencing, and hopefully your partner wants to know that, male or female. It doesn't really matter that, who's doing it. But it has to be done so
you're not invisible to one another.
Exactly. And then we have to be careful. And I always tell people, I said, if you're wanting somebody to open up to you, and I do this when I'm talking to parents too about their kids, I said, if you want somebody to be open and honest with you, you cannot react poorly when they tell you the truth. So if your partner comes to you and says, hey, honey, I'm having a really hard time with this thing over here that's happening with us, maybe it's our sex life, maybe it's, how much time we are or are not spending with each other, or maybe it's the influence of your family member, whatever the heck it might be. To be able to sit there and listen and not necessarily have to own it, that this is just how my partner's feeling about it. And yes, I do want to know that because it explains why these other behaviors might be happening. But it's something that, communication is always the thing that I start with, because if you can't talk about something, there's no way to resolve it.
Yep.
And so it's like you're talking about that check-in example of, 20 minutes a week, half an hour a week, which when you
might
think
save
about
our marriage.
it, well,
but the key thing, Leslie, is when people don't have a muscle, it's the same thing as going to the gym.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The first week, the first 2 weeks suck. And how often do people just blow off the gym?
Mm-hmm.
So when people are doing a check-in, which is basically a safe, respectful container for the speaking of truth, so a couple does not live invisible lives to each other, built up by functionality, apathy, and low-level hatred, okay? When they build up that muscle to speak truth to each other once a week in a container, and they stick with it religiously, after time, they will notice the quality of their relationship diminishes significantly when they stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will actually be like, whoa, we got to get back on track.
Exactly.
It's been going sideways. And dudes love this because they don't have to. There's time containers, too, because guys get lost in women's words.
Yes.
Women are often much bigger with words, much better with words, and after 5 minutes, this is male or female, we check out. I haven't had a chance to insert myself, and sometimes after 5 minutes or 10 minutes in a check-in, I got to stop midway and repeat to my partner, hey, you said a lot. I know it's only been 3 minutes. I would literally recommend clients to set a timer on their phone. It creates a container. Now I know she's not going to be talking for a half hour, and I'm expected to listen. Or vice versa, if the dude's the more talkative guy, but it's less common. So I love the way, guys love the way that this makes it concrete. It's action-oriented, and they feel better afterwards, and they feel more connected.
Right. Well, because my mother-in-law, I tell people I hit the in-law jackpot. I could not have asked for better in-laws. And my mother-in-law was the sweetest woman you could possibly imagine. But oh my gosh, her conversations were circular, and it would be like, it was a horrible thing. But one of my husband's high school friends was dying of cancer, and she was giving us the checkup, and finally, like 10 minutes later, I just looked at her. I said, "Did he die?" Because it was like the conversation was just like all over the place, and I got lost. And and this happens when people, and women can do this. And I'm a woman. I have, my husband also would say he would never win an argument because he was married to a woman and a therapist. I took that to heart. I did. I took that to heart and went, ooh, okay, I need to behave myself. And we have to look at the goal. What is the goal that we want? If it's to be connected with our partners, are we willing to make adjustments so that they feel welcome in this? So it's like, if I'm the woman and I want my husband to talk with me, am I making it possible? Like the example you gave of the guy who did 9 out of the 10 things, and and then he got beaten up for not doing the 10th one. It's like, whoa, hang on, wait a minute.
Right. I was going to say real quick, though, a lot of times guys don't realize that they want to be connected. They just want to have sex and get off, even in marriages. Mm-hmm. But what they don't realize is that sex is actually getting them connected.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be highlighted, is because it really is, it's a safe way for men to connect. And, and again, there's both there's biological and psychological reasons for why sex does that. But part of it is helping them to move past it. And that's why you and I have jobs. Just
say
past
it again.
It's just sex. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's
but
nothing
I
wrong
don't know
with
that
sex.
we need them to move past it, like past sex.
No.
I think
just
we need them to.
It's only sex.
Gotcha.
That's
okay.
what I meant.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, for them to have a bigger understanding about, you know what, stress release is one thing, connection is another, and while the stress release might be a significant factor of what you're seeking in that moment, chances are if you could go have that stress release with somebody else, and often men are in that position where they feel like they can, and that's what leads to affairs, etc. That's when they get the idea that, like, oh, yeah, I guess I could go do that with someone else, but yet I'm married, and, yeah, so maybe I should look at how this is about more than just stress release. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I want to be connected to her.
Yeah, they wanted to be connected to their wife, and so that's really important.
Right.
So, I mean,
but at the same time, it can feel like there's a ton of work in getting connected, where sex is easy. And I know we're kind of wrapping up here. I did want to say one other thing real quick.
Absolutely.
If I have time.
Sure.
I want to be clear that check-in on its own is not a solution, because if enough negativity has built up between a couple, I call that the broken bones. We can't just come with the Band-Aid of a check-in to fix the broken bones. A lot of times with guys, I need to do a lot of what I call a foundational work on those broken bones. And I see that's why I believe couples therapy often fails, because they tried to do this Band-Aid, we're going to get you to communicate better, but they're not willing to call out the troublemakers in the relationship, the ones who are in abusive patterns, attacking, unwilling to see that the man's trying to show up, unwilling to see that the woman's making the effort to keep the home together or work her butt off. So that's where another thing that I offer that's different than couples therapy, and sometimes I'll talk to both partners together, is that often they're using these tools to try to get two people who are in a level of hatred or just low-level apathy or hatred to try to use these tools when some of the broken bones need to be mended first. And I experienced that personally in my former marriage. It's great, we felt great, we did the check-in for 24 hours, then the spell disappeared 24 hours later. And there was also not an accountability for the couples counselor to tell us, don't come back to my office unless you do this once before the next time I see you. And that kind of tough love that you need to integrate this as a pattern of your relationship. It's not going to be enough for me to just lead this here.
Absolutely. So, Stuart, can you tell people...
I just wanted to make that point.
Absolutely. It's an important point to make because again, there is a lot of repair work that has to be done. And again, the longer that people wait, the more likely they have a bunch of broken bones. And again, if you have a broken bone, you're not going to wait 6 years to go to the doctor, which is what I think the average 6 or 7 years of getting help. It's crazy. So, Stuart, can you tell people where they can...
the doctor is so miserable, you won't go to the doctor.
That's true.
And unfortunately, that's been the association for therapy for most men.
Yes, and I get that. And where can people learn more about you? What's your website? Again.
Sure. Yeah, and just to reiterate, I'm a men's relationship coach, and I help guys get unstuck in their relationship as well as get love, sex, and a kick-ass relationship. And typically guys are seeing me where they're in that space of damned if I do and damned if I don't, and they don't know how to, they don't really know where to turn, and they're reluctant to therapy. But I offer a more action-oriented, results-oriented approach, and they can reach me at stuartmatola.com. It's StuartMotola.com. And I have a weekly blog, and I run a free men's Zoom call every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And I also do a Facebook Live every Friday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And that's StuartMatolaCoaching.com. Or excuse me, StuartMatola.com. And you can access the Facebook page there as well. But thanks for having me, Leslie. It was a pleasure talking, a lot of fun. And I know we could do this for much longer.
Yes, we could. So I just wanted to remind my listeners that nothing is guaranteed in life, and that's true for your relationships as well. The things worth having are worth taking risks for and making time for. And being honest about who you are and what you need is essential if you're to have a relationship that works. And yes, it's scary, but the alternative is actually worse. So hopefully you found this helpful, and I hope you'll keep listening. And until next week, stay loving.